In the sunny coastal town of Nambuto, I, Asena, stood in our small yard listening to my mother, Matafa, complain again about the life I had chosen. She always repeated the same painful sentence, as if she wanted it to stay inside my heart forever. You should have married rich. To her, money meant safety, status and pride. To her, my husband, Kairo, was a mistake because he worked as a simple bicycle repairman. She saw the grease on his hands, the old tools, the tiny shop by the busy road, and she believed that was all he would ever offer me. She never cared to look deeper, never cared to understand the quiet strength behind his soft smile, or the long nights he spent fixing broken bicycles so children could ride to school the next morning. But I knew our story better than anyone. I knew what he had carried for us. I remembered the first year of our marriage when we had nothing but hope, and he worked day and night to keep food on the table. I remembered how he gave away free repairs to elderly people who could not pay. He always said kindness returns in ways money never could. I admired him for that. Yet every visit from my mother felt like a battle. She spoke loudly, pointing at the peeling paint of our home, accusing him of failing me. Kairo never argued. He just lowered his eyes and kept working. That silence made my heart ache more than her words. Still, beneath all this tension, there was something bigger moving toward us, something no one expected. Kairo had been secretly building something in the back of his workshop, saving every extra coin, every free minute. He wanted to surprise me, to show me that dreams grow quietly before anyone sees them. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I could feel the excitement in him, the way he smiled to himself when he thought I wasn't looking. My mother kept warning me that staying with him would only bring struggle. She didn't see that love had already made us stronger than she understood. She didn't know that a storm was coming. Not a storm to destroy us, but one that would reveal who we truly were. And when it arrived, the whole town of Nambuto would witness it. Kairo and I built everything from scratch. Our tiny home. Our dreams. Our respect. We started with almost nothing, just two people believing that love and hard work could create a better future. Every wall in our small house carried a memory of us working side by side. We painted it together, fixed the broken windows together, and even laughed through the moments when the roof leaked during heavy rain. Those days were tough, but they were ours. They made us stronger. But to Matafa, none of that mattered. She never looked at the effort behind our life. She only noticed the rough edges, the simple furniture, and the old tools scattered around. She ignored the truth that every little thing had been built with patience, sweat, and real commitment. Whenever she visited, her eyes moved around the house as if she was searching for reasons to prove her point. She always believed that anything without shine had no meaning. She noticed the scratches on the door, but never saw how many times Kairo stayed up late fixing it after long hours at his shop. She saw the patched walls but not the nights I spent helping him repair them, because we couldn't afford help. She didn't understand that these flaws were proof of how far we had come. Even with her harsh opinions, Kairo remained calm. He never reacted to her negative comments. Instead, he kept working, kept smiling softly, and kept showing me that our happiness didn't depend on approval. That quiet confidence made me fall for him even deeper. He had a strength that didn't need to shout. He cared about building a future with me more than impressing anyone outside our home. But what Matafa couldn't see was the change that was coming. Kairo had been working on something secretly, something he wanted to turn into a gift for both of us. He saved every little earning, every small tip, and put all his extra hours into making it real. I didn't know exactly what he was planning, but I felt hope growing between us. There was a feeling in the air, something bright, something powerful, something that could silence every doubt. Soon the world around us would shift. Soon every judgment would fade. Soon Matafa would realize she had been looking at us with the wrong eyes. Something big was approaching, and when it arrived, it would change everything. Not just for us, but for everyone who doubted what we built from nothing. One afternoon, a community leader arrived with a plea. Help repair the town's delivery tricycles that transported medicine. Those tricycles were old, slow, and almost falling apart. They were the only way the clinic could send supplies to far villages. The usual mechanic was sick, and without quick repairs, people who depended on those medicines would suffer. Kairo didn't think twice. He wiped his hands, stood up and said he would do it. His voice was calm, but I could feel the seriousness in the air. This wasn't just another job. This was about people's health, people's lives. But before he could even take a step, my mother laughed in that sharp way that cut deeper than a knife. She said loudly, "Small jobs bring small futures." She didn't understand how important this task was. She couldn't see that helping the community meant more than chasing wealth. To her, anything that didn't look grand was worthless. She didn't see the worry on the leader's face, the urgency in his voice, or the weight of the situation. All she saw was her own idea of success, and she judged everything through that narrow lens. Kairo didn't argue. He simply nodded and walked with the leader toward the broken tricycles. I followed behind, watching him roll up his sleeves with determination. The clinic staff stood nearby, hoping he could work fast. Without those tricycles, children in distant areas wouldn't receive their fever medicine. Mothers wouldn't get their supplies. Elders wouldn't get their treatments on time. Kairo understood that. He worked with full focus, checking every chain, every wheel, every bolt. Sweat covered his forehead, but he pushed through without stopping. People from the neighborhood gathered around, whispering about how serious the situation was. Some even said that if the tricycles didn't move soon, the whole town could face trouble. Still, my mother stood aside with her arms crossed, shaking her head as if his efforts were meaningless. She didn't realize that the whole community was quietly depending on him. Kairo kept going until the engines hummed smoothly again. The leader's relieved smile said everything. In that moment I felt proud, not because he fixed machines, but because he carried responsibility with a heart full of care. What looked small to my mother was actually a lifeline for many. And soon everyone would understand just how powerful his work truly was. A storm swept the town. Floodwaters rose fast, covering the roads and shaking everything around us. The sky turned dark, the wind roared, and people ran to their homes for safety. In the middle of all that chaos, news spread that one of the medicine tricycles had overturned near the narrow cliff road. The rain had washed away part of the path, and the vehicle had slipped dangerously close to the edge. The delivery boy, Zamari, a young teenager who always worked with a bright smile, was trapped under it. His voice was weak, and he couldn't move. Everyone was scared to go near the cliff, because the ground kept breaking with every drop of water. The moment Kairo heard this, he didn't pause. He didn't ask questions. He just rushed into the storm with full speed. The rain hit his face hard. The wind pushed him back, but he kept going. I could see the fear on my mother's face, yet she didn't move. She stood still, shaking, unable to understand how someone could risk their life like that. She called out to him, begging him to stop, but he didn't look back. His only focus was reaching Zamari before the hillside collapsed completely. When Kairo reached the spot, the situation was worse than anyone expected. The tricycle was heavy, the mud was slippery, and the cliff was breaking bit by bit. Zamari was crying, terrified, holding on to whatever he could. Kairo stepped carefully, using all his strength to push against the sinking tricycle. The water kept rushing past them, threatening to pull them over the edge. People gathered at a distance, afraid to help but desperate for something good to happen. Kairo pressed his feet into the soaked ground, and lifted with everything he had. Slowly, he managed to free Zamari from the trapped position. The boy was shaking, soaked and injured, but he was alive. Kairo held him tightly, and guided him away from the crumbling part of the cliff. As they reached safer land, the crowd gasped with relief. Some even cried. The community leader rushed to them, thanking Kairo again and again for saving a life when everyone else felt helpless. My mother watched all of this with wide eyes. For the first time, she didn't have a comment, a judgment, or a complaint. She saw courage. She saw heart. She saw the kind of strength money could never buy. And in that moment, everything she believed started to change. Kairo climbed down the slippery cliff, pulled Zamari out, fixed the broken tricycle under lightning, and pushed it back himself so the medicine could reach the rescue shelter. My mother watched the whole thing, speechless. The rain kept pouring like buckets from the sky, making the cliff even more dangerous. Yet Kairo didn't slow down. His clothes were soaked, mud covered his legs, and the storm kept trying to push him off balance. But he held on with a strength that came from deep inside. He didn't care about the risk to himself. His only focus was saving a boy and getting those medical supplies where they were needed the most. Zamari, still scared and shaking, clung to Kairo as he guided him away from the dangerous edge. Once he was safe, Kairo turned back to the tricycle without waiting even a second. The vehicle was badly damaged, one wheel bent, the chain broken, and the entire frame leaning to the side. Lightning flashed behind him, lighting up his figure as he worked with his tools. People watching from afar felt both fear and awe. No one else dared to go near that spot. Yet he stayed there, fixing piece by piece while the wind howled. His hands moved fast, steady, and focused, as if the storm didn't exist. When the tricycle finally stood straight again, Kairo didn't stop to rest. He grabbed the handles and started pushing it himself through the flooded path. The water rose up to his knees, the ground was slippery, but he pushed with all his strength. The medicine box was tied to the back, and he kept checking it to make sure nothing fell off. Every step was a struggle, but he knew people in the rescue shelter were waiting for those supplies. Sick children, elderly villagers, injured families, all depending on that one delivery. By the time he reached the shelter, everyone ran out cheering with relief. The nurses took the medicines immediately, thanking him again and again for not giving up. Some people hugged Zamari, grateful he was safe. Even grown men, who normally spoke tough, wiped tears from their faces after seeing what Kairo had done. My mother stood behind the crowd, unable to speak. She had seen courage she never believed he had. She had seen him risk everything while expecting nothing in return. For the first time, she looked at him not with doubt, but with real respect. The storm had shaken the whole town, but it also opened her eyes to who Kairo truly was. The next morning, the mayor announced a gathering. Word spread across the town so fast that by sunrise people were already leaving their homes, excited to witness what was about to happen. The storm had damaged many places, but the spirit of the town felt stronger than ever, and everyone knew why. They wanted to honor the man who had fought against the rain, the wind, and the cliffside to save a boy and make sure the medicine reached the people who needed it. When Kairo and I arrived at the town square, a huge crowd was already waiting. Faces that usually passed him without noticing were now smiling warmly, waving, calling out his name with pride. The mayor stood on a small wooden stage, speaking into a microphone that crackled every few seconds. He told everyone how Kairo climbed down a dangerous cliff without thinking of himself, how he worked through lightning to repair the tricycle, and how he pushed it through flooding roads just to make sure no one went without treatment. People clapped, some whistled, and others shouted in agreement. My heart felt full watching all these voices join together to appreciate him. This wasn't just praise. It was the town showing gratitude for someone who had always quietly helped behind the scenes. The applause grew louder when the mayor handed him a certificate of bravery and a small medal for courage. Children lifted little signs with his name. Elders nodded with respect. Even people who never spoke to us before now reached out to shake his hand. Kairo looked overwhelmed, his eyes soft, his smile shy, but he stood there with calm pride. He didn't do any of it for recognition, but seeing the joy in the crowd made his efforts feel valued. And then, almost slowly, like she needed time to process what she was witnessing, my mother stepped forward. She didn't speak at first. She just looked around, listening to the cheers filling the square. Every voice calling his name felt like a message she could no longer deny. She saw a community celebrating the man she once doubted. She saw respect that money could never buy. She saw that the husband she thought was too simple had become the hero of the entire town. For the first time, she couldn't argue, she couldn't complain, and she couldn't pretend anymore. The truth was right in front of her, louder than her doubts, louder than her judgments. Everyone admired Kairo, deeply, openly, proudly, and she stood there realizing the man she underestimated was someone truly extraordinary. Kairo revealed a secret. He had turned down a high-paying job in the capital because he wanted to stay in Nambuto to take care of me after my health scare last year. My mother's eyes widened. She had known nothing. She looked at him like she was seeing a completely different person, someone she had never taken the time to understand. The crowd went silent for a moment, shocked by what he had quietly sacrificed. I remembered that difficult time. The dizziness, the weakness, the nights when I could barely stand. Kairo stayed beside me every second, cooking, cleaning, running his shop, and still finding time to make me smile. I never knew he had another option, a better paying path waiting for him somewhere far away. He never mentioned it, not even once, because he didn't want me to feel guilty or worried. He explained softly that the job offer came at the same time the doctor warned me to avoid stress. The capital was hours away, fast-paced and demanding. He didn't want to leave me alone or send me into fear. So he walked away from that opportunity without saying a word. He chose love over luxury, safety over status, and home over ambition. People in the crowd murmured in admiration. My mother's posture slowly changed. Her shoulders lowered, her expression softened, and her voice stayed quiet for once. She finally realized that the man she thought had nothing, had given up everything, just to make sure I stayed safe. I could feel tears building as I watched him speak with so much honesty, yet so much simplicity. He never bragged or complained. He never made me feel like a burden. Instead, he carried that sacrifice as if it was the easiest decision in the world. The mayor nodded respectfully, saying few people would ever make such a choice. Ladies in the crowd wiped tears from their eyes, whispering that real love looks exactly like this. My mother stepped closer, her usual sharp tone gone. She struggled to find words, clearly shocked by the truth she had ignored for so long. She finally understood that Kairo wasn't just anything. He was loyal, selfless, and brave. He didn't chase wealth because his priority was family. And in that moment, she knew she had judged him unfairly. The truth broke her pride gently but completely, showing her what real character truly looks like. Matafa finally sat with Kairo. He spoke calmly. Riches fade. Loyalty does not. His voice was gentle, not angry or defensive, just honest. For the first time my mother listened, truly listened. She didn't interrupt, she didn't roll her eyes, she didn't argue. She simply looked at him, really seeing him instead of judging him. Her gaze dropped to his hands, rough from long days repairing bicycles, carrying heavy tools, and helping anyone who needed him. Those same hands had held me steady during my weakest moments, cooked for me when I couldn't stand, wiped my forehead when I was sick, and protected our home through every struggle. Matafa's face softened as she slowly realized that strength isn't always wrapped in shiny things. Sometimes it lives quietly in small actions, in sacrifices no one else notices. She watched him as he explained how he didn't care about fancy things, how he believed comfort meant nothing if the heart wasn't safe. He said he wanted a peaceful life, one where his family felt cared for, not a life spent chasing status. His words were simple, but they carried a depth she had never expected from the man she dismissed for so long. She glanced at me, then back at him, and her eyes filled with something she never allowed before: respect. She remembered all the times she criticized him while he stayed silent, never talking back, never disrespecting her even when her words were harsh. She thought about how he repaired the town's tricycles in the storm, how he risked his life to save young Zamari, how he pushed that damaged vehicle through floods just so medicine could reach the shelter. And now she understood that he hadn't done any of that for praise. This was simply who he was. Kairo continued speaking quietly, telling her he wasn't ashamed of his work or his simple life. He said he believed a person's worth came from their actions, not what they owned. My mother nodded slowly, the stubbornness in her finally melting away. She took a long breath, looking at him with new eyes, eyes that no longer judged but appreciated. In that moment, something healed. The wall she had built between us, between her and him, began to crumble. She realized she had misread him all along. She finally understood that love, protection, sacrifice, and loyalty were far more valuable than any riches she had ever wished for. My mother cried. She apologized, not just to me, but to Kairo. Her voice shook as she spoke, and for the first time, every word came from a place of truth, not pride. She admitted she had judged him by coins, not character. She confessed she had been blinded by her own idea of success, and never looked at the way he treated me, protected me, and stood by me through every hardship. Seeing her break down like that felt unreal, because she had always been strong, stubborn, and loud. But now she sat there with tears on her cheeks, finally understanding everything she had ignored for so long. She turned to Kairo, her hands trembling, and told him she was sorry for every harsh remark, every insult, every moment she made him feel small. Kairo didn't pull away. He listened quietly, just like he always did. He nodded gently, not out of pride, but out of kindness. He told her he held no grudges, that he understood her worries even when her words were hurtful. That simple response made her cry even more. She realized he had more patience and grace than she had ever given him credit for. Then she looked at me, wiped her face with the back of her hand, and said something I never thought I would hear. Asena, you chose well. Those words hit me deeply, because I had waited years for her to see what I saw in him. I had waited for her to understand that love is not measured by wealth, but by effort, devotion, and honesty. Hearing her finally say it felt like a heavy door unlocking inside my chest. The people around us watched quietly, touched by the moment. Some smiled, some nodded, as if they had all been waiting for this shift between my mother and Kairo. She held his hands for a moment, studying every scar and every callus, realizing those marks came from years of working hard not just for himself, but for us. She saw clearly now that his hands were not signs of struggle, they were signs of strength. In that moment, the tension that had lived between us for so long melted away. My mother didn't just accept him, she respected him. She didn't just forgive him, she honored him. And as she pulled both of us into a shaky embrace, I felt something change forever. Our family had finally healed. Now my mother brags about her brave son-in-law. She tells everyone who visits our home about the man who saved Zamari, repaired the tricycles in the storm, and stayed by my side when I was sick. She points at him with pride, her eyes shining as she speaks of his courage and kindness. The neighbors nod, whispering to each other how right I was to choose him, and even strangers in the town stop by just to shake his hand. Kairo, as always, smiles softly, embarrassed by the attention, but quietly proud of what he has done for our family and community. The town loves him now. Children run to greet him, women clap when he walks by, and even the local shopkeepers treat him with a newfound respect. His reputation has grown not because he shouted about his deeds, but because he showed real bravery and heart in the moments that truly mattered. People talk about him as someone dependable, selfless, and strong. Someone who does not need wealth to prove his value. Every small act he performed, unnoticed before, is now remembered and celebrated by everyone who lives here. Our home feels stronger than ever. The walls we built together, once considered simple by my mother, are now filled with laughter, warmth, and pride. Kairo's dedication and care have created more than a house. They have created a safe, happy place for me, for our friends, and for anyone who comes seeking comfort. Even my mother has changed. She now helps with chores, brings food when he works long hours, and even listens to his advice without arguing. She finally understands that stability comes from love and effort, not money or status. She often says aloud, smiling and shaking her head in disbelief, "Happiness is better than wealth. Only a fool learns late." Her words carry the lesson she has finally understood. Life's true treasure is not gold, but loyalty, courage, and the people who stand by you when times are hard. She tells this to neighbors, friends, and family alike, proud to admit that she was wrong before. And that's how the man my mother once rejected became the person she respects the most. Kairo is no longer just my husband. He is the hero of the town, the protector of our home, and the man who changed not only my life but also my mother's heart forever. People speak of him with admiration. My mother tells his story proudly, and I know that in every storm and every challenge, we will face it together, with love, courage, and unwavering loyalty. And that's the story of how love, courage, and loyalty can change everything. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more amazing African folktales. Stay tuned for the next story. You won't want to miss it.